Okay, so in the previous video we had taken a look at the effect of being the numbers here in terms of self-employed, and the vast bulk of people in the HMDA dataset are employed and only a smaller proportion are self-employed. That might have some effect on the extent to which, because of job insecurity and so on, self-employed people may not always obtain the same degree of mortgage approval. So we can examine that a little bit in terms of mortgage approval. So we can look at, again, for each credit score, different groups, we can examine the extent to which mortgages were denied, or denied yes, or approved no. So no, deny means approved. And we can see again, if the credit score is quite high, it doesn't seem to have an effect. And in fact, across the board, the individuals who are self-employed, here designated split in terms of the blue, they don't seem to suffer adversely from terms of mortgage approval. So we don't observe any direct effects initially, or any superficial effects at least, in terms of being self-employed and mortgage approval. Okay, nothing stands out, nothing jumps out. Okay, so in the next snippet of code, we're going to look at the mortgage credit score relative to denied mortgage insurance, DMI. And again, this is just an exploratory data analysis. So credits, the mortgage credit score has just 4 categories. Again, the highest 4 here denotes the worst performance. Most people have a mortgage credit score of 2, would appear. Being denied mortgage insurance would appear to have some effect here. We don't seem to, so denied mortgage insurance seems to correlate strongly with not getting a mortgage, but seems to be more evident when the mortgage credit score is 2. But the bulk of individuals also seem to fit into this category and not 1. Okay, so again, nothing immediately that we can grasp onto here and say we'd look with very strong exploratory variables. We just have some limited insights that maybe we can blend together. Okay, so let's run the ggplot again and look at histogram. In this instance, we're going to examine histogram. We're going to go in bandwidth of 0.1, and we're going to look at the loan-to-value ratio, and the number of mortgage applications in the loan-to-value ratio. So typically, the loan-to-value ratio is normally banks might have a protocol to limit that to 80%, but then there would be some exceptions. Going above 100% is normally frowned upon because it's not seen to be or perceived to be prudential. If we can split apart then the loan-to-value ratios for those who were not denied, and those who were denied. So again, the blue here denotes mortgages denied, right? Mortgage denied, and the red denotes mortgages approved. What we might observe here, as we get closer to 1, an increasing number of mortgages are denied. Again, that would look prudential. And even when the overall number of applicants decreases, the number of mortgage denials increases. So that seems to suggest that beyond this loan-to-value ratio of 0.8, 0.9, banks get a little bit nervous, are not as happy to approve the mortgage, and loan-to-value ratio seems to have some type of effect, particularly when we go above 0.8, 0.9. It seems to trigger a set of reactions. Now we can examine that using a logit model, and we set a logit model here where we just basically take the loan to value ratio and regress using logistic regression on deny, which is a binary variable 1 and 0. Okay, so let's run that and get a summary, and we can see that where there is a positive relationship. So 1 here denotes mortgage denied, 0 denotes mortgage approved, and there's a positive relationship between loan to value and mortgage denial, right? When we include all the variables, the 13 variables in the logistic regression, not just a single variable that we have here, but actually take on board all the variables, run that, do we observe that clear positive relationship? When we come down here, look at the loan to value ratio is 1.79, and yes, it's statistically significant. If you look at the t value, it is in excess of 3.6. That's fairly much in excess of 2 normally, with 2,308 observations in excess of 2 would tend to denote that this is statistically significant, and we can tell here from the p-value it's less than 0.05. So yes, the loan to value ratio is statistically significant. Again, more evidence that loan to value ratio is important. Okay, so I'm going to plot here then the debt to income ratio against the household expenditure to income ratio. We seem to get just a series of numbers. Interestingly, we seem to have a straight line that goes up like this. Let's see if we can get some more definition in here. We've included a reference here to color, so we color code in the dots the credit score, and again, maybe there is a pattern, but clearly we seem to have a straight line, a 1 for 1, and then above that, or below the line, it's most of the population here. Now, one way of reading this is that the debt to income ratio is generally not exceeded by the household income the household expenditure to income ratio. In other words, with some rare exceptions here and some values here, the debt to income ratio normally is in excess of the household expenditure to income ratio. But the two could be equal, but DIR is generally in excess or equal to the HIR. Now that's one way of reading this. Okay, let's explore that a little bit more. I've put here deny, and in other words, mortgage approved, mortgage denied. No means mortgage approved, yes means mortgage denied. Right, and you can note here, this is 0, this is 1. Once we go beyond 0.5, we're getting a lot of blue, which means the mortgages were denied. Okay, now we can use the filter syntax in the dplyr, because we use tidyverse and loaded that into our library. We can filter our data here, so we just include here this quadrant here, this snippet here, and exclude everything else. Okay, it's not that many observations. So let's filter it so that we're below a DIR of 1 and a HIR of 1. Run again. And we've done this for credit scores, and we've excluded the outliers. Again, the pattern is not terribly strong. Probably if we run again and instead of using color to denote the credit score, maybe we can use color to denote mortgage approved, mortgage denied. And again here, when we look at this, what we observe, once we go beyond 0.5, so the values here of 0.5 to 0.5, okay, so this is also 0.5. This seems to be a straight line, and the axis that runs up here seems to be going at a 45-degree angle. There are some exceptions here, but the bulk of the observation in terms of applicants fall this side of this, what we might call a 45-degree line. That would tend to suggest that DIR generally is in excess of HIR, maybe equal to, but generally in excess. Also, once we get to 0.5 here, this is 0.5. So once we're in this zone here beyond 0.5 and 0.5 here, okay, we do have some mortgage approvals, but the bulk here are not being approved. We have blue, and that tends to suggest if your income, if your household expenditure and your debt servicing 0.5 and 0.5, then you're exceeding your income through just purely paying off your debt, paying your household expenditure, and probably is not prudential to approve that mortgage. Now, individuals might be independently wealthy, have other resources, cash resources. If self-employed, maybe the income is variable, maybe the income is considered, might be expected to go up. But the bulk here, obviously, more mortgages are denied than approved. And when we get below 0.40, perhaps, on this axis here, DIR, less and less are blue, more is red, in other words, being approved. Okay, so that might be important for analysis later on. And let's go again, and we can break apart using the facet wrap. Same as before, except we can break down the different classes. Not that useful here in terms of exploring the data. And again, if you're 1, perhaps you can see, maybe you can filter that a little bit better. We could put in a trend, again, not terribly significant perhaps in terms of relaying information, or maybe it's a bit clumsy. But if we apply the filter syntax, it means we stay below 1. That's quite good here because we get the bulk of the observations. And I've neglected this time to put in a geometric smoothing. Okay, so we're not imposing a trend here. We're just looking at the data, and we're breaking it apart for credit scores. And for credit score 1, the bulk again are red, no, mean being approved, not being denied. But once you go past the 0.5, there is more blue. Likewise here, once you go past the 0.5, maybe even a bit below the 0.5 here, there is more blue. And likewise here, the blue here is more uniformly distributed, and perhaps here as well. So once the credit score becomes high, there's a lot of denial of mortgages either ways. But when the credit score is 1, above 0.5, you can see increasingly blue, and here credit score 2, somewhere maybe in the low 30s, we see a lot of blue for the DIR, debt to income ratio. As regards to HIR, it's hard to draw a line this side that delineates those who have been approved and not been approved, right? So using HIR is not as useful as it would look at first instance in deciding or delineating who's approved or not been approved. But for credit score 1 and credit score 2, I think we can draw a line, above 0.5 for credit score 1. We have a lot of this mortgages not being approved, and over here, once we go above 0.25, 0.3, a lot of applicants are not being approved. Okay, now just to examine perhaps some of the correlation between the DIR and HIR, it's 0.78, so they are highly correlated together. We could also take a look at again, something similar, but where on the horizontal axis look at the loan to value ratio relative to, in this instance, the debt to income. There is a slightly positive relationship between the two, but not that evident. It's fairly shallow, and we'll explore that in the next video clip.